Hello, my neighbors. How's everyone doing today? Today we are going to go over the Cathay roster and do a tier list for it as of patch 4.2, just so we can update a couple things. Alright, to go over a couple ground rules when it comes to this roster, this isn't based off just raw power, otherwise it would be really simple. It's a complicated combination of issues like recruitment, upkeep. Power is also in there as well, it's just it's not the only thing. Also, upkeep costs, convenience of use, and what you're using it against. So, without further ado, I say let's go ahead and get started. So let's start off with the melee infantry, starting off with Peasant Long Spearmen. So with the Peasant Long Spearmen, I'm going to have to say it's an A tier. So they're really cheap, kind of like Gavos, they're really cheap, but they actually have a lot of entities and pretty good damage against anti-large. You would have about 40 melee attack if large units start to come into the lines of Peasant Long Spearmen, and I find they do a lot of damage against ogres. And lots of times when I would play ogres charging into them, I realized it was a bad idea. So they're really good, really cheap to recruit, only one turn, and also you can globally recruit them in only one turn as well once you get 10 settlements, as you can recruit them without a barracks building and at any settlement of your choosing. So it's really reliable, really good in emergency, especially since you can recruit a lot of them in a pinch. So I think they're pretty solid for a tier 1 unit. Alright, next let's go with the Jade Warriors. So Jade Warriors are going to be a little bit above Peasant Long Spearmen. They are also good. These you do have to get a barracks building for, but you're going to build it anyways to accumulate some other units. So they're heavy armored, which is what, about 80 armor, really good stats, melee defense. They don't really have the charge bracing, charge reflection like some of the spear units, and no anti-large, but having that shield is very handy. This is completely underrated, especially considering how you have Lokir Fellheart on your shores in Cathay. So having the shields to deal with all those dark shards is absolutely amazing, and they're only about 20-30 more gold per turn over Peasant Long Spearmen, as just Peasant Long Spearmen are much more convenient to recruit. So for more armor, more stats, like, you can't go wrong for just paying a little more upkeep, as long as you're willing to get the building, which you probably should. Alright, what's the next one here? We're gonna go with the Jade Warrior Spears. I have to put this as an A tier as well. So they're in the same building, tier 3, as the Jade Warriors. They have armor piercing, which is absolutely phenomenal. Really good armor, really good melee defense, and that anti-large to deal with all the large units coming your way. They do lack shields though, so you do have to be careful. I wouldn't recommend using these while the Dark Elves are still in Cathay. I recommend going with the shielded bonus. It really makes a difference of making sure those armor piercing missiles aren't damaging you, because sure, these guys are high armored, but with dark shards and shades with armor piercing missiles, it's not going to make much of a difference, so you'll do better with the shields. But for anything not Dark Elf missile related, I would go with the spears up until a point. Okay, and let's see that. Now we're going to go with the Celestial Dragon Guard. So Celestial Dragon Guard are an S tier unit. So heavily armored, great leadership, they'll almost unbreakable. Great stats, great melee defense, great melee attack, great weapon damage, and anti-large. Like, they are just a perfect frontline unit. Kind of feels like a phalanx, sort of. So it's just, once you get them, they're worth recruiting. I know it takes 2 turns to recruit them, but it's well worth it with the amount of power they can bring and for protecting your artillery and range units. So it is a tier 4 unit, so it does take a while, but once you get it, it is a huge power spike, and you will not go back to these units unless you're trying to be exceptionally cheap. Alright, is that it for all of the melee units? I think it is, so let's go ahead and move on to the range units, starting with the Peasant Bowmen. Peasant Bowmen are going to be an A tier. Let's go right above the Peasant Long Spearmen. So same thing with the Peasant Long Spearmen. You can recruit them from any settlement, and you can also globally recruit them in one turn as well with 10 settlements. So it's very good in emergency use, and in the early game it's going to be your main damage dealer until you can upgrade to Jade Crossbowmen. So it's really good, not a lot of armor piercing damage, but it has a high amount of entities, so it ends up getting a lot of damage out, surprisingly for its cost. but it's pretty good. I highly recommend it, and you can't really go wrong, especially with how much the research tree buffs up peasants. Okay, your next upgrade for range units is the Jade Crossbowman, and I'll put this right above Peasant Bowman. So the Jade Crossbowmen are really good. You get them at tier 2. It looks, yeah, tier 2 for the barracks building, and they do a little more armor piercing damage. 90 entities, less entities, but they do more overall damage and more armor piercing damage. So they're really good at getting that extra damage out that you may need against armored opponents. Also, it has 80 armor, not that great melee or defense or melee attack, so make sure they're not getting stuck in melee, but they will survive a bit and being able to dish out damage while being able to take out missiles, especially with the AI now programmed to aim for your ranged units. So you have to be exceptionally careful when dealing with the Dark Elves, as those armor piercing missiles will pierce right through them, so you need to micro and make sure to keep them alive. Alright, the next is Jade Crossbowmen with shields. Where do you think I'm going to put this one? A tier again. I'm going to put it right. It's a direct upgrade with the Crossbowmen. So they're basically the same exact damage stats, but with what, roughly 8 melee defense, so they'll last a little longer if they get stuck, and you get shields. So this is exceptional when dealing with missile factions like the Dark Elves. But most likely the Dark Elves will already be done with before you get this, because this is tier 3 along with the Halberds. But there might be a chance you won't, so this will help you with dealing with them. So it's a really good unit, and that's awesome. Not that much of a price increase. It's really exceptional. So far, like, Cathay's roster is really good. There's not a lot of bad units, so they did really well with that. Alright, Celestial Dragon Guard Crossbowmen. S tier. Armor piercing missiles. Any armor piercing archer unit is absolutely phenomenal for the most part, because you don't have to worry about line of sight as much, as you can just shoot over the lines and they can just dish out a lot of damage, and you don't have to micro them like you do gunpowder units. They also have exceptional melee stats and armor and leadership, so they will, if they get caught in a pinch of getting ambushed, they'll actually be able to dish out some damage and survive a lot. I highly recommend having a giant stack of these and Mao Ying's army, as she buffs them with so much, along with the Saint Ting the Watcher will buff them to crazy amounts where they act as mini artillery pieces. So yeah, it's an outstanding unit, and possibly, I think, the best unit in their roster. Alright, moving on. Alright, what should we move on to? Let's talk about cavalry. Peasant Horsemen. Trash. Peasant Horsemen, they would be higher if, like the Peasant Longbowmen and the Peasant Archers, they could be recruited from any settlement. Because then you would be able to get these from the start of the game, and that would actually give them some more value, lead them to C tier. Pushing B tier with the upgrades, but probably C tier. But the fact that you have to actually get a building to get these is just super inconvenient, and the building itself is inconvenient other than one unit on that building. So we're about to go over that real quick. Jade Lancers. So this is a complicated one. In any army, C tier. But when it has Devastating Flanker, it's B tier. So we're going to keep C tier from the start. But if you eventually get Devastating Flanker, sure, I'll give it B tier. We'll say B. They perform okay. Decent melee stats, armored. Once you get the Devastating Flanker from the tech tree, like, they'll have insane charge amounts, especially in some Yang-focused armies. They'll have insane charge amounts. They're meant to be used as a shock cavalry. So you get them in, do charge damage. 10 seconds goes by, you pull them out. But at the same time, with cavalry, lots of times it's a lot harder to pull out than it is for chariots. But overall, it's an okay unit. It's not the best, but it performs to expectation. Remember, C tier at the start, B tier with Devastating Flanker. So I'll just leave it at B tier, because you're probably going to make the building anyways. That building is inconvenient, but you get Longmas. Okay. Longma Riders. I'm going to put this as A tier. So this would be an S tier unit because it has high armored, great melee stats, it flies, massive charge bonus, and gets buffed even more. The only reason this isn't an S tier unit is how inconvenient it is to get this. Let me explain. So with these, like, you're probably going to build the building already if you want to get these two cavalry. You want to be cavalry focused, but they're kind of mediocre cavalry, and there's better options in my opinion. And this is a tier 5 unit, and you have to wait so long to get these. And by the time you get to tier 5, sure, you can go with these, but now Cathay's roster has just a lot more better options you can go with, which makes the building that the Longmire Riders are built in, that are trained in, just really inconvenient when you can go for different building and other options. Doesn't mean it's a terrible unit. It could be S tier. In some cases, there's some doom stacks you can make with it, but I'm just gonna sell at A tier. I know I'm probably gonna get called out for that, but I stand by my choice. All right, moving on. Onyx Crossbowman. Sorry, correction. Onyx Crowman. So this is one of the new units added in 4.2. And it's kind of like a harpy. It has demonic, so it will crumble if left in a fight, but it'll actually stay in the fight. It can fly. It has actually really decent melee stats for what it is. And key part is magical attacks, which if you're playing as Yuan Bao, the first thing you're fighting against is savage orcs, which have ridiculously high physical resistance. So if you're able to recruit this is from the tier 2 barracks, which you're most likely going to build anyways, you can just bypass those savage orcs physical resistance or for other demons. So it's a really good unit. It's really convenient. You're going to build the building anyways, most likely, and the fact it flies, if you bunch them up together, I wouldn't recommend like keeping one unit by itself, stacking two at a time to overwhelm the backline of an enemy. And you get much more value because you're already going to build that building anyways than just getting the cavalry building. So I would put it over Jade Lancers. Like, I think it's a really impressive unit. Most flyers are just garbage, like the vultures from Tomb Kings, but it's actually, it performs adequately. Like, I'm happy. I'm satisfied with it. Alright, next flyer. Celestial Lions. So with this unit, it's one of the units from patch 4.2. The previous update, tweaking them a little bit, it would be on an A tier. Now that they have like 1,000 more health, S tier. So you can buff these guys a tremendous amount from the tech tree and also from other tree lines as well. And I was testing them out a little bit, and they do a lot of damage. They're armor piercing, great melee stats, great armor, super fast, and also they have a special ability that provides a leadership debuff of -8 in an area of effect around them. So if you have a bunch of these, you can just keep applying that once the other has used up its time. So giving the enemy forces a permanent -8 leadership debuff, which is really great, especially against like vampires or demons to help them crumble a lot faster, or against like humanoid armies for having them rout faster. They're really good, really reliable. Since it's only one single entity, you can get them out of trouble quickly to cycle charge back into. Really decent charge bonus. It's a solid unit. I'm really glad they took it. It was what, about 5.3k health, I think, and now it's 6.3, so it really makes a lot of difference. Also, in Yuan Bao's army, it's awesome. And plus, you get that reduced upkeep in Yuan Bao's army for it. So, exceptional unit. I'm very satisfied with it. Alright. Moonbird. Oh, I also didn't discuss. So, this guy is tier 3. I almost missed that one out. And it's for the Astromancer building, which you're going to build anyways, because you can recruit it at the same time as Jade Lions and Jet Lions on tier 3 and get Astromancers. So you're going to make that building anyways to unlock the Satan the Watcher. So really convenient to get, and they're not that pricey. Alright, Moonbird. So this is a tier 5 unit from the same building as the Celestial Lions. So really good stats, really fast, decent melee stats. I think just a tad bit of armor, really fast, and has a special ability with one use where it causes a vortex where it gets stuck, kind of like over a unit, but it melts that unit. So that ability is really good against armor piercing. It's really good. I think tier 5 is a little high. I think tier 4 would be better. I'm hoping I'm getting that accurate on the tiers, but you're gonna recruit it anyways. It's pretty convenient. But I think these guys are way better when you have an Astromancer hero mounting them. But them as themselves, I think, I'm gonna put it under the Longmire Riders, because with the Longmire Riders, they fly, insane charge bonus, and they won't die as easily. But the Moonbird's good because you can like cycle charge them out. But I feel like whenever I use them, there's a problem with them either using their ability, then they just get missile down, because I notice the AI really focuses on them. But it's not a terrible unit. Like, it performs way above its pay grade, but I just don't think it's as good as a Celestial Lion as Longmire Rider. But really good unit, added from patch 4.2. Alright, Jade Lion. Alright, so I did a bunch of tests, testing Celestial Lions, Jet Lions, Jade Lions, and Moonbirds, just like kind of mixing them all together and kind of deciding. So Jade Lion gets a bounce spell. It's a breath spell. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it has 2 uses of it. And it gets spell mastery to the rest of the army. So you can get a bunch of these, really stack up your spell mastery. But I think there's a cap on that, and that only does so much in my opinion. Like, I think there's better things in my opinion. As this unit goes, it's convenient to recruit, but decently armored. Leadership's alright. Remember, these are constructs, they can crumble. Melee attack's great, weapon strength's great, armor piercing, so it's gonna do a lot of damage. Problem is I don't like its melee defense. Like, it's decent, don't get me wrong, but if you're going with the Jade version, it is meant to dish out damage, but once it's stuck in a blob, it's gonna start taking a lot of damage. This one's hard to decide. Does have a lot of utility, and has a lot of utility, easy to recruit. I'll put this right under the Moonbird, because it's convenient, it does a lot of damage, bounce spell is convenient, and it's just, it could be an S tier, but just the way this entity is, it just can take a lot of damage being stuck in that melee. But otherwise, good unit. I just have some personal bias against it from keeping it higher. Alright, Jet Lion. So, Jet Lion's the Yang version of this. Sorry, correction, Yin version of this. So it has armor piercing, decent melee attack, not as much as a Jade Lion, but it's good enough. Has about 20 more melee defense than Jade Lion. So when this is in melee, it's going to last a lot longer, like a tremendous amount. I was testing it, it was a huge difference, and it's actually fairly competent on just making sure the blobs are stuck there while you're able to spellcast or cycle charge if you're Celestial Lions. So it's really good, and also these are really paired well with Celestial Lions because of the Yin and Yang effect. The Celestial Lions will give Yang, the Jet Lions will give Yin. So boosting your Celestial Lions even further. So it's tremendous at doing that. Also, it has 2 bounce spells with a missile mirror, which is really good against like dark shards with reflecting the armor piercing damage back at them. That was actually the first time I actually ever used that spell. I always overlooked it, but with it being bound, I was like, let me give it a try. It can actually be really useful since all of your Celestial units are going to be stuck in melee, and they're going to be vulnerable because they're pretty big single entities, so they're vulnerable to weapons teams, gunpowder units. So being able to reflect that and micro-it is actually really impressive. Sure, you don't get the bounce spell, but they're sturdy and really good utility. Also, their melee attacks have a silence effect, so if you have one going after their hero spellcaster, you can prevent them from casting spells, which the AI isn't that great at casting spells in the first place, but I can see this having utility in multiplayer. I'm going to put it right here, right over Moonbird and right under Longmire Riders. So I think it's an exceptional unit, a really good support unit if you want to do like a Jet Lion, Celestial Lion kind of stack together. I think that works a lot better. That way you can only have just only need like a front line of these while stacking on the Celestial Lions to give them that benefit and to take care of missile units. So really good unit, added in patch 4.2, convenient. Oh yeah, these guys are in the same building, tier 3, so really convenient to use. You're probably going to make these anyways to get Satan. Alright, let's moving on. Let's try not to drag much further. Oh, I did miss the gunpowder units, didn't I? Alright, let's get on with that. Alright, Iron Hail Gunners, C tier. So you're going to build the building anyways. They're tier 2, crappy melee stats. Like, if they get stuck in melee, they're just going to get downed. If the range units target them, which they will with the new AI, they're dead. Like, good luck. And sure, they do a high-powered armor-piercing damage, but the range is too short, and there's too much microing for that. And they're only really good if you're like one or two of them, and you got like monsters coming at you. But by the time you have monsters coming at you, like with the later stages of the campaign, you're already gonna be replaced this unit. It's not horrible. It's just there's better alternatives. I'd rather have some archers being able to not worry about line of sight issues, and the archers, the crossbowmen, are sturdier. So I just think there's better units. Alright, moving on. Crane Gunners. So, I don't very often recruit Crane Gunners. I've recruited them a couple times just to try them out. Yes, they're good. Really good high range, armor piercing damage. So, they're really good at taking out priority targets. Maybe having like 2 or 3 of them in an army just in case you see some big beasties coming down the route and you just want to make sure they're taken out of the way. But again, they run into line of sight issues. Even in guard mode, lots of times they'll move forward to target an enemy, and it's just a lot of babysitting. You do get these at tier 3, but there's better units from that building that you get these in at tier 3. So I don't think they're horrible. They're not the worst thing, but I didn't get much use out of them. Utility wise, I know a lot of people live and die by them, and yes, I know you can checkerboard, but it's just too much babysitting. It's not my playstyle. I'm not saying it's a horrible unit, it's just it's not my thing. Alright, moving on. Let's go with the artillery. Alright, the first one you get is the Grand Cannon, right? So tier 3. You get in the same building as the gunpowder units, and you get it at the same time as the Crane Gunners. This is why I was saying, hey, you can get better units by then. And this is one of the greatest artillery pieces in the game, like especially in the Cathay roster, but in the game in general. So I'll put it right here, right above Dragon Guard, right below Crossbowmen, because Crossbowmen are just superior. So it's armor piercing, roughly 200 damage. Their armor piercing, what you get on ultra scale, you get 4 entities, high amount of ammunition. They're really accurate. And yes, cannons are mostly used against large units, which they do a lot of damage against large units, but they also clear out infantry so well, and they're really good at clearing out towers and sieges. It's just this Grand Cannon is a multi-purpose artillery, and it will help you in so many scenarios. It's really impressive, especially for a tier 3 artillery. You can't go wrong with it. Alright, so let's see. What is this? Hellfire Rocket? Or Hellfire Volley? I forgot the name of this one. I know it shoots Hellfire. So with this unit, I don't think it's as good. It's tier 4, so it takes a little bit longer to get it. I don't think it's as good as or convenient as the cannon, but it doesn't mean it's not powerful. I typically will get like 2 cannons, or if I'm feeling a little cheeky, I'll get 4 cannons and like 2 of these. So it's a good unit, like high damage, but poor accuracy, poor ammunition. You're really reliant on the units bundling up, and this new AI, I noticed they actually proactively try to dodge a shot, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. I think it's a really good unit. S tier, you're gonna go to tier 4 anyways, but I don't think it's as powerful or much utility as it can be. So I think it could be much better with a little bit more accuracy, but I understand the whole point is to cluster bomb the area. But it could be a little difficult to use with the AI being a little bit smarter these days. Yeah. I know a lot of people probably want that higher, but I'm not saying it's a bad unit. It's still in the S tier, but I just think maybe a lower tier or just a little bit more ammunition will go a long way. It's borderline A tier, so I'm being very generous with putting it in S tier. I know I'll get some heat for that, but that's okay. War drums. I mean, they're alright. I'll pull them over Iron Hill Gunners. It's nice because if you really want to fortify, because it's in a 60-meter radius, I think you can either do a reload skill buff or an armor buff. So whether you want to buff the line or buff your ranged units. But my philosophy on that is like, okay, the amount of damage your units will do, you can just get another ranged unit. Yes, it does give some leadership buffs, but by the time you're rolling this out, like, your infantry will already hold the line for so long. Like, they don't need the extra help. Like, I'd rather just have a ranged unit or just, hey, throw another Grand Cannon. That'll give me a lot more value. It's not horrible. It's not the worst thing, but you could find better. Alright, moving on. Where are we working with? Alright, what's this one? I forgot the name of this one because it's so pathetic. D tier. This one, so Sky Junk's the nice one. I think this is called the Sky Lantern. It's a pathetic unit. This unit needs to be reworked. There's no reason to recruit it. I will never use this. No, it's just not. You eventually run out of ammunition, and then it's shooting guns, doing kind of meek damage against units, and then it runs out of ammo, and it becomes useless, and it's slow, and it can be taken down by like harpies and furies easily. So it's a pathetic unit. You can have other stuff in your roster. I'd rather have horsemen in my roster than the Sky Lantern. Alright, Sky Junk. So this actually impressed me. So one thing I don't like about it that's keeping it from S tier is how slow it is, but it makes up for that with the vast amount of health. What, 10k health on this thing? A fair amount of ammunition, roughly a little bit more than the little Hellfire rocket you got, but it's really good at getting a really good angle on units whenever, because lots of times your Hellfire rocket can miss, and the Sky Junk, when it eventually gets there, because it's ridiculously slow, like infantry slow, will get a really good angle on units to bombard them from the side, getting really good damage with its little Hellfire blast that it does. So good ammunition, good health, good damage, but you do have to be careful, as with it being slow, it can be melted down by ranged units fairly quickly despite having all that health. So the speed boosts are nice from a lot of the tech trees, but it still just doesn't break the S tier ranks, in my opinion. But yeah, you're probably going to be making this building anyways, as it's from the same building as the Alchemist. So you're going to upgrade and get this anyways, in case you really need the extra help in sieges, or you just really like your artillery not having to worry about getting charged in. And compared to the Sky Lantern, this will actually handle Harpy and Fury charges on it. And when it runs out of ammo, it can still use its gun units that are marked with it to still do some damage. So always get really good value out of it. So I'm really impressed with it. Alright. And forgive me if I'm being tongue-tied or anything, or getting a couple of the details missed, as this is my first major tier list. So I'll get better with age, and I would recommend if y'all in the comments will let me know how I'm doing or how I can do better. So if you could do that. Alright, the Wuzhang Compass. It's better than a horseman. Alright, so let me explain. The only reason I have this at D tier, it's not a horrible unit. It has a really nice couple things. Some bound spells are really great. It's really good power recharge. And there's a couple good buffs to it. I mean, I guess we'll go to C tier, because arguing that. The reason why I put this in C tier is because as Astromancers, they can equip this. So why would you recruit this unit itself? It's not a horrible unit, it's just it's so much better with an Astromancer on it. But now with patch 4.2, Astromancers can be on Moonbirds, and I'd rather have them on Moonbirds in the first place. So this just... it's not horrible, it has a lot of things, but it's just... and it's not inconvenient because you're going to make the building anyways. It's just, why would you get this when you can get something much better? I can get another cannon and get much more value out of that. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I know a lot of people swear by the Compass Doomstack, but I personally just find no use of it. Alright, Terracotta Sentinel. Alright, thanks for y'all being here so far. Like, I know this is a lengthy list. This is actually a long video. I'm trying my best not to get tongue-tied, doing my best. So, Terracotta Sentinel. Really good unit, really solid. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. I don't think this is an S tier unit. Let me explain why. So it is convenient to recruit because you're going to make the building anyways. Also, on the Bastion gates, you can recruit these at every single gate, so that's convenient too. It does a lot of damage, really good stats. It can do a lot of damage. The problem I get with this is a lack of healing this unit, which would be really awesome. The only one that I know that can is Mao Ying, and you're better off with her army getting a Dragon Guard Crossbowman Doomstack. So these units are good, it's just they're expensive for what you're getting, and maybe having like one or two of them is fine. Doomstacking them I don't think is a good idea. It's just there's a different playstyle I'd rather go with it if I can't heal this giant single entity unit. But it doesn't mean it's terrible. It's convenient, does a lot of damage, but it could be better. It could be S tier, but it just misses the mark. But really solid, really convenient. Alright, now we're going to go through the heroes. So let's start with the Gate Master. And when I'm going through this, with the units, like I am comparing them to the other units of or I rate them, but when it comes to heroes, obviously doesn't mean that a hero is worse than this unit. It's just I'm grading the heroes and lords by themselves, so consider them separate. I just want to do it all in one go so y'all don't have to watch a whole separate video. Gate Master, I would say, is a B tier. They're alright. They have a lot of neat buffs to buffing your front lines, really good leadership buffs, buffing up your range units, which is really convenient. They do a lot of damage. I recommend using them against cavalry or single entities, especially single large entities, to do that extra damage, but I just don't find myself feeling them that often. I do use them as agents pretty conveniently. Not that much upkeep, about 300 upkeep for an agent. They can damage units, they can wound agents, so that's pretty good. So that's mostly why I use them for, but in combat I don't use them that often as you have better options. Alchemist is going to be A tier. So the Lord Medal is extremely good, and you're gonna make the building anyways to get this unit, as that building also gives you local recruitment capacity and also leads the way to Skyjunks. So really convenient to use. You get a lot of buffs from especially playing as Zhao Ming, but overall you get a lot of buffs to them with recruiting capacity and recruiting rank. So they're very convenient. Lord Metal does a lot of damage. My only gripe with them is the fact that they only get a horse and that they don't get a Longma Rider. If they get a Longma Rider, it would be S tier. Easily. Alright, Astromancer. I'll put these at the front here. S tier. So the Astromancer, the Lore of Heavens is great. Like, you got a lot of damaging abilities. Like, you can really pack a punch and just burn down all of the units around you. Plus, he gets a lot of mounts. He gets a horse. He gets the compass if you want to do that. But more importantly, he gets a Moonbird. So, which is really great because the Moonbird has that bound spell, which does expose them for a little bit to range units, but if you're facing against melee factions, it's of no consequence, and you can really delete a elite infantry with using that ability. So it's really great. I really love to put at least one in an army. If it's a defensive army, I'll just switch to a compass to better the spellcasting and get a couple more balanced spells out. But if it's a melee focused army, I'll focus on the Moonbirds. You can put this in a 19 Astromancer Doomstack with Zhao Ming, so that one is a lot of fun to play with. Alright, let's see, other lords. Or heroes. No, that's all the heroes. Start with lords. This one, I forgot the name of it because it's generic C tier. He does have a couple abilities like buffing up a hero stack if you got him, but if there was like melee heroes, I would consider that. A couple other unique abilities, but the lack of like quality mounts, because like it gets like a horse and a Sky Lantern really weak. He's really armor not that great in a fight, so I just he could be better. Alright, Dragon Gun. No, it's a Dragonborn Sugar Gun. I forgot the name of this one. You can either have Lore of Yin, Lore of Yang. I think this is another S tier lord. Yeah, S tier lord. Really convenient, especially let's say you're playing as Yuan Bao. You have that split campaign, Yuan Bao taking on Lustria. I always get a Lore of Yang lord to deal with the vampires, because rushing into those little fire spells you got just makes the vampires that are nearby a really simple threat to deal with, and they're really nice. But that's the only time I really recruit them. Otherwise, I will go with a different route when it comes to the lord, and that will be with the Celestial General. A lot of people are going to give me heat for this, but I think Celestial Generals are absolutely exceptional. They are high armored, high melee stats, high weapon damage, high melee defense. They're really good leadership. They will fight to the death almost. It's really good. They have exceptional buffs. They can get Longbow Riders, like just really, really good. Longbow Rider mount, that is. And they have really good skill trees that buff them even further and also buff the damage or defenses of the army. So I love, my go-to of lords is always to have someone that's a beefcake while buffing the army, because my hero is going to be a spellcaster anyways. That's the only times I really don't mind spellcaster heroes is if, hey, I don't have any heroes available, so a spellcaster lord is needed. But Celestial Generals are great. Alright, ooh, we forgot Sangting the Watcher, hero. S tier. So he does a lot of range damage, kind of acts like a bone giant from the Tomb Kings, and he buffs the living hell out of Dragon Guard crossbowmen. And especially in Mao Ying's army, like it's one heck of a doom stack, and it turns them into little artillery pieces. He does a lot of damage, has some cool bounce spells. Not really good in a melee, poor melee defense, so make sure he's not a melee to use his jump ability to move everyone off around him and get him away. Otherwise, despite the armor, he's going to take a lot of damage being big. But really solid. Came in patch 4.2. I really recommend him, and it's nice just having a Gundam. Alright, let's go over the lords. Y'all know how this is gonna go. All of Cathay's lords are S tier, but if I have to... Oh, this is a hard one. It's hard to rate them between each other. Oh, this is difficult. This is difficult. So baseline, I like Zhao Ming the most because he gets regeneration in his abilities. But if you get Yuan Bao, a regeneration blade, he becomes a one-man doom stack. Yuan Bao is able, with his executioner ability, to essentially delete heroes and lords, which is really, really awesome. He has Lore of Yin, which I mostly just use that Dragon Vortex ability, which is really great at taking out infantry, and he just lasts a long time. It's really awesome. Which is good for regeneration, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm gonna put Zhao, because Lore of Yin's alright, but Lore of Ying's so much better, and he gets regeneration in his ability. He doesn't need a weapon for it, so he can further boost his damage. Lore of Ying's great damaging ability, just clearing out infantry, and it'll last forever. Mao Ying's great also. She buffs Dragon Guard crossbowman a lot, and it's really good in that Sating the Watcher stack. And also you can turn her into a one-man doom stack as well, with a lot of abilities buffing her out and just making her almost unhittable. So all of them are great. I like Xiao Ming the most, but alright, that about covers it. So thank y'all if y'all stayed here from the very end, or if you're just skipping through everything just so you can see the end of it. I'll leave that in the, maybe I'll do like a little timestamp so people can just jump to the end, because I know I do that sometimes too. Thank y'all for being patient for whenever I'm being tongue-tied or just for getting information. This is my very first tier list, and I just wanted to express my own opinions. I do like Cathay. I am very biased about it. I know not everyone's going to agree with that, and I would like for you to comment about that, of why you don't agree and why do you think certain units should be placed elsewhere. Because I know when it comes to tier lists, everyone has really big biases or really strong opinions, and I would love to hear that conversation. If you enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like, and if you enjoy Total War content, please hit a subscribe. I really appreciate that. If you want to be a member, we also have memberships. They only cost 99 cents if you wish to support us. But thanks again for being here for the video, and as always, come be my neighbor.